In this segment of our masterclass, we're going to explore our role as sacred artist, the painter or artist who is performing shamanic work. Pure art speaks from soul to soul. I have found that as I have gone deeper on my own spiritual path, that there is some inner need to express the spiritual. Some people do this through music, or some do this in art. So in this segment, we will explore the archetypal essential idea of the artist as seer and healer. We will consider some wide-ranging inspiration just to move our molecules as we prepare for this lesson. I will show you some random inspirations that are very moving for me, and I will be curious to see the references that deeply touch you. As I embarked on my vision quest, one of the questions I had was about when, in the evolution of mankind, did people begin to ponder the big existential questions. We know that about 17,000 years ago, hunter-gatherer and agricultural civilizations existed. As civilization came even more into agriculture, the time horizon of work and life would have shifted from mere survival to more forward-thinking pursuits because farming requires planning. The more one engages in future thinking, the more likely one is to ponder the purpose of life and the afterlife. The cave paintings from Lascaux are considered to be the Sistine Chapel of prehistoric art. Compared to art that has evolved over the last few thousand years, these paintings are pure, in the same sense that the art of a child is. I love seeing these pieces because it takes us to what is believed to be the very origin of artistic expression on earth. Perhaps depicted for no other reason but to fulfill a desire to create and record what was, these are some of the earliest known creative expressions of man. Looking at these primal sources of art gives us a conceptual freshness and vitality. It reminds us of our desire to recapture and make new the power of looking back at our origins. The shamans in these prehistoric tribes, Michael Tucker says, were the archetype of all artists: image maker, dancer and drummer, actor and singer, healer and holy one. The shaman epitomized the human need to bridge worlds, to fly beyond the everyday realm of the visual in order to conjure worlds of visionary presence and power. The shaman served the community. The modern artist can also serve as a sort of shaman or seer, creating work that stirs the soul. When I think of artists whose work touches my very soul, one of the artists who immediately come to my mind is Vincent van Gogh. Michael Tucker says that Van Gogh's life was one long struggle to develop in expressing impulses which exalted life. Moving beyond the restrictive horizons of his father's Protestant faith, Van Gogh's personal sense of spiritual awe involved his conviction that one needed, he said, a certain dash of inspiration, a ray from on high, in order to create art that might inspire people. He wanted to paint images with, he said, something of the eternal, which the halo used to symbolize. He often tried to achieve this through radiant vibrations of color. He said, "Love many things, for therein lies the true strength, and whosoever loves much performs much and can accomplish much, and what is done in love is done well." He also said, if you truly love nature, you will find beauty everywhere. And said, for my part, I know nothing with any certainty, but the sight of the stars makes me dream. Monica Zhu was a Swedish painter, writer, and self-proclaimed radical feminist who was an early exponent of the goddess movement. Her 1987 book, The Great Cosmic Mother, helped revive what she considered the hidden history of the goddess. Her paintings transformed ancient images and symbols into contemporary icons of female power. She was fascinated by the old goddess religions and images related to this. This is her painting, God Giving Birth, an iconic work of feminist art. In her works, Zhu expressed her spiritual belief in the Great Mother as the great cosmic spirit and generative force of the universe. This is Merit Elizabeth Oppenheim. She was a German-born Swiss surrealist artist, model, and photographer. I love this portrait she created from a photo and stencil, and you can see my attempt at the same thing. One of the most famous paintings by Marc Chagall is Time is a River Without Banks. It is a surrealist picture depicting a pendulum clock floating along a river, and sitting on the clock is an enormous winged fish playing a fiddle. I also love the Russian painter Vasily Kandinsky. In addition to being a painter, he was an author. He wrote a book called Concerning the Spiritual in Art, which was first published in 1912. Kandinsky spoke of how people's minds were only just awakening after years of materialism and how they were infected with the despair of unbelief and lack of purpose. This is another Kandinsky, Improvisation 26, not one of his most famous, but still intriguing nonetheless. We find a figure nearest us in a red outline as Kandinsky works on his truly expressionist approach where reality is constructed in abstract form. He studied the concept of vibration. He believed that human emotion consists of vibrations of the soul, and that the soul is set into vibration by nature. His purpose was to create vibrations in the beholder, and the work of art is the vehicle he used to produce those vibrations. These František Kupka images were created from his visionary experiences, where he said, color is imaginary, space is infinite, and everything is in a state of flux. I also love these Frans Wyderberg images. He was one of Norway's most important figurative painters of the latter part of the 20th century, and Wyderberg has been described as a seer, a healer, a shaman, a storyteller, and a cosmologist. Wyderberg maintained that his pictures are based on experiences, wishes, and dreams. They are reality just as wishes and dreams are. That reality includes both timelessness and weightlessness. Figures hover, levitate, swoop, and dive. The horse and rider is a recurrent motif reminding us of Norse legends. Wyderberg's other figures in a landscape seem isolated outcasts in a world fraught with human fallibility. I feel particularly drawn to bursts of color and images that convey motion, movement, dimension, wings, and floating or flight. Alan Davies' work is often of images like this. Hindu philosophy tells us that he who understands has wings. The flight of the shamanic spirit and 20th century art has been a flight which suggests that transcendence is to be found in the depths of intuition and the blending of consciousness with the unconscious. Paul Gauguin had a famous painting called Where Do We Come From? Who are we? Where are we going? This, of course, reminds me of our soul question paintings. Who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? I particularly love Georgia O'Keeffe. She suggested to a friend that making your unknown known is the important thing, and keeping the unknown always beyond you. She said, catching, crystallizing your simple, clear vision of life. It's what she referred to as the memory or dream thing in her paintings that brought O'Keeffe close to that center, which felt to her, she said, like a plot of warm, moist, well-tilled earth with the sun shining on it. This is a Picasso painting he loved so much he kept it for 40 years before he finally sold it to the Tate in London. The Three Dancers is a picture which tells of the struggle for psychic integration, of the crucifixion of the self between the forces of life. The picture reveals the sacrifice and the pain which accompany the growth of the self toward individuation. The sentiment behind this quote of Picasso's will sound hauntingly familiar to our tribe, as we have so often asked, who made it? Painting, said Picasso, is stronger than I am. It makes me do what it wants. Picasso also spoke with a friend about the Three Dancers regarding what it was that distinguishes the power of certain paintings from others. Something holy, said Picasso. That's what it is. That's the kind of word you ought to be able to use, only people would get it wrong and give it a meaning it doesn't possess. Hilma af Klint was a fascinating Swedish artist who made automatic drawings during seances. In her later work, forms would emerge under layers of transparent paint. Some of you know my captivation with Mark Rothko's and Willem de Kooning's work. They painted at the same time. They were abstract expressionists. I think there is such a holiness to their images. And the more I read about them, the more I understand some of their influences: spiritual evolution, an understanding of consciousness. One writer about Rothko described intently noting the color vibrations of Rothko's paintings and then discounting the surface so that the whole painting ceases to be as a concrete thing. Then he said, does its mystical or spiritual character, its transcendental beauty, become evident? Rothko himself described painting as mystical inner construction. So now let's get on to your art mission. Using whatever inspiration calls to you, you can either paint a series of self-portraits or in some other way express something of the shaman within you. It is time for you to step into your power as a sacred artist. Really see yourself in the role of a painter or the artist who is performing shamanic work. Engage your archetypes, your inner artist who is also a seer and healer. If you decide to do self-portraits, I encourage you to use your broader definition of self, recognizing the divinity within you. Salvador Dali said, I do not paint a portrait to look like the subject. Rather does the subject grow to look like his portrait. If you choose to create one or a series of self-portraits, here are some inspirational thought starters. First, I encourage these self-portraits to be more abstract in nature. This is not only to prevent us from getting overly caught up in trying to capture a perfect likeness, but also to give us the freedom to think outside the box and to free us up to explore with color lines and forms. Perhaps you will choose to do a series of 3 portraits on 3 separate pages: how you see yourself, how you think others see you, how you would like to be seen. Or you could do 3 from past, present, and future. There are prompts in your workbook for shamanic paintings as well as self-portraits. I am so excited to debrief this exercise and see where this takes us as a tribe. Namaste.